show where history comes alive. Welcome to the live talk show where we bring you across the timeline to delve deep into the world of yesteryears. What makes or breaks an empire? The once city-state which prospered from its salt trade and ideal geographical location now faces the threat of vanishing under the rising tides as global warming turns its face against the once prosperous nation. We will today explore the spotlights of Venice as we chat with our distinguished guests to deepen our understanding. Welcome Dr. Francisco Chong, Head of the Department of Social Science and US, Antonio Polo, ex-civil servant of the Venetian Empire, Dr. Maria Cotanto, Assistant Professor of the Department of International Studies, University of Rome, and the daughter of the famous businessman Giordano da Palma, founder of Venice Training Co. What and how has some of the factors influenced the rise of Venice?
From what I've understood of the Venetian history, the city-state rose with a leadership that was efficient and incorrupt, gaining the trust of the Venetians. On the far side, the government had accomplished many great tasks that allowed the city-state of separate swamps and lagoons to flourish as a great city. It was that. Taking an example of Doge Pietro II Asolo, he took the initiative of maintaining foreign relationships with the Byzantine Emperor and the Germanic kings, which in turn created trade links with Muslim states and brought piracy under control. This established control in the Adriatic Sea, Ionian and the Mediterranean Sea, which in turn created a trade monopoly, creating more wealth to the city. This enhanced the popularity of the place as a trading port and thus attracted foreign traders to trade at Venice.
I still reminisce of the days when I worked under the regime of Doge Enrico Dandolo. Under his rule and ambitious thoughts, the Fourth Crusade was initiated and ultimately overthrew the Byzantine Emperor, taking over the capital city, Constantinople. This was a time where I could never forget, for this conquest opens up a new trading link to the mainland. This has significantly increased the interactions between us, Venetians, and the rest of Europe, as trading links brought us closer to our peak.
The Venetian Empire could never have gone far without the expansion of the empire, as the 120 over small islands were insufficient to cope with the blooming population and trade. The Venetians were skilled diplomats and were able to obtain favorable trading terms like lower tax rates, and also had a competitive edge in the lucrative spice trade from the east. This allowed the Venetians to get more contacts and trading partners, which boosted trade, which increased wealth and influenced, and thus the rise of Venice.
This is my ancestor's diary. He was a trader during that time. She was such an accomplished trader, and now I'm going to share with you the excerpts of his diary. Dear diary, I reached Venice faster than I expected. Venice is getting better. It is a prosperous and flourishing maritime state. The last time I reached here, they did not have such big ships. Those ships are the biggest I've ever seen in my life. This place is so convenient with all the traders together to sell and buy goods. The tax rates are very low too, so that I can buy goods at low price and sell at a very high price. I can earn more. Venice is simply wonderful. I should come here more often. My ancestor made a lot of money at that time. He traded frequently at Venice and made a lot of profit from selling the goods. He was very fascinated about their systems and made trading easier. To him, Venice was simply the best place to trade. I believe other traders at that point of time also thought the same too. I heard that the members in the new Great Council come from the most influential families. Incontrovertibly, there will be competition in the rank to serve the government during all this growth of nobility. The Great Council was expanded to prevent this unsettling rivalry from destabilizing the government. The newspaper reports. I've heard the membership has reached a startling 400. They tell us that more nobles can have the opportunity to decide on Venice's future, and I hope they will be able to do so in a way that will benefit all of us Venetians.
Do not overlook the trade monopoly Venice formed in the 14th century. They managed to achieve the feat after they defeated the greatest rival, Genoa, in the same century. However, not only that, Venice had numerous other factors in their favor. They were strategically positioned at the northern tip of the Adriatic Sea, which gave them easier access to trading ports. Central and Southern Europe relied on Venice for goods from the east. Venetian traders went to Arabian ports to buy and later sell these eastern goods at a very high price, reaping large profits in the process. Venice was then able to provide a large amount of goods from the east as its navy dominated that region.
Then let's discuss the innovations and breakthroughs made in maritime technology. The nautical chart and marine compass were invented, which certainly proved their invaluable worth to sailors on a great voyage. In addition, improved visibility allowed travels in winter and enabled domination in the seas throughout the year. In fact, superior vessels that were designed and constructed in that time were able to sail swiftly over long distances, allowing travels independent from wind. Great galleys were clever combinations of merchants and war vessels, greatly discouraging piracy.
Oh yes, I recall that. Other than that, the Great Council maintained checks and balances by monitoring activities to prevent corrupt practices of power by high-ranking officers. Many of us commoners and civilians greatly supported this because we would not get affected by any corrupt activities going on in the government. They prevented the concentration of power at any place.
The changing structure of the government made for the creation of the Great Council, formed to elect capable members to all councils in the government. They did quite well in settling disputes between members of different councils. The Great Council also specialized in duties for all the councils, and in fact, more specific committees were created to handle disparate affairs. With different duties, the councils will not be poking their noses into each other's affairs, and there will be fewer disputes to settle. The Great Council also passed laws, meted out punishments, and exonerated criminals.
Thank you. So there is good and effective leadership, trade development expansions, and reforms in the Venetian government. However, let's move on to another topic of discussion that is greatly related to the rise of Venice. What do you think contributed to the decline of Venice?
Excellent question. May I please highlight the foreign trades that appeared in the 15th century? One outstanding foreign trade was the Ottoman Empire, which replaced Genoa as Venice's greatest competitor for maritime control. The involvement in the mainland had caused a drain of Venice's resources, and to prevent further loss, Venice gave up some of its less important territories. The resources include galleys, most of which Venice removed from using for trade in the war against the Ottoman Empire.
The two more periods of wars in the 15th century, which greatly drained the resources and manpower and disrupted trade. Many Venetian traders were worried over what would happen to the trade. Venice then attempted to contain the power of the Ottomans while balancing the power of the European neighbors. I am not saying that they succeeded though, and they exacerbated relations with these neighbors, as Venice's action of giving concessions to Ottomans while later seeking military aid against them whenever it suited them annoyed the allied countries. Later in the European military campaign against the Ottomans, Venice was left to fend for itself, later losing Negroponte.
Still mentioned in his diary about the Lake of Cambrai, which after reading those excerpts, I understood as the collaboration of many major European powers like Spain, Hungary, and France, which aimed to reduce Venice's power and divide its territories. Venice lost many of their territories to the League, and the trade was greatly affected. Despite later managing to recapture some of its territories with new military alliance, Venice had then to raise taxes to sustain their mercenary army and replenish its weapon supply, which affected trade.
Were established and they had better designed ships to move across the sea. Venetian sailors were unable to operate the imitated ships that they were built and lost an edge over the foreigners. Venice lost its position as an export port as the company specialized in bringing cotton and pepper from India and porcelain from China. The government imposed higher taxes on foreign traders in response, and as a result, we lost some of our trading partners.
A Allow me to supplement the explanation by adding in the factor of political challenges, which includes corruption in the government, in order to finance their military efforts. Venice suspended the salaries of civil servants. Some members of the nobility hence lost their income, and there was a division in the nobility class by wealth. Some of these nobles then sold their votes at a high price, and people who could afford thus assumed the authority. The civil positions to raise funds during crisis also resulted in incompetent leaders taking government positions, which resulted in extreme inefficiency.
Thank you very much. So, in the decline of Venice, there is a contribution of foreign threats, maritime competition, and political challenges. Thank you very much for your viewing. We hope that you have learned much from this episode, and see you next week. Goodbye.